let's bring in our next guest, and this is Jackie Ducci, and you may recognize her because she's a gold medalist, in fact, but she's the founder of the Human Animal Alliance. Jackie, good morning. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about, first of all, what motivated you to create this alliance and to really try to educate people on these issues?
Sure. Well, like you, I'm a huge animal lover. I have since the time I was very young. I'm an avid equestrian. I've had dogs and cats my whole life. And I've just always been a believer in just how powerful that human-animal bond is. And so I started this organization, and one of our foundational pillars is keeping people and animals together, just trying to preserve that bond. So after moving to Florida a couple of years ago, this issue of natural disasters really kind of got my attention, and, thinking about how many pets get lost or displaced during these disasters, it's terrible and it's preventable in a lot of cases. So now that we're in hurricane season again and with the wildfires in Maui and everything, it just feels like an important time to be talking about it.
Yeah, so take me through it, what we're seeing with all of these natural disasters. And, here in our region of Philadelphia, we have forest fires raging, started on Sunday sometimes, whether it's fire, whether it's flooding. Take us through, for example, what people can do to find out when we see a natural disaster, how many, I think post-pandemic, we still, at the SPCA, for example, as I had talked to my friends there, they have a ton of animals who need homes.
Yeah, and actually, so this is interesting too, 83% of Americans live in areas at risk of natural disaster, which is a massive percentage, and we don't all think about that, but it's not just hurricanes and wildfires, it's tornadoes, earthquakes, blizzards, like so many things. So I think it's something that we all need to be aware of if we have animals. So some things that people should think about, I think number one, just having a pet emergency kit available so that if you have to evacuate quickly, you're not scrambling for items, or, you're clear about what you need. So that would include things like, the basics, food and water, leashes, a crate if you have one. But things that people don't always think about are vaccination records for the pets. That could be important if you wind up going to a shelter somewhere that houses people and animals. They may need that paperwork for you to come in. Medications that they have, any ID tags. Also, a great thing is to have a photo of yourself with your pet so that if, you do get separated somehow, your odds of finding them are much better if you have that with you. Also, a medical kit, and this is actually something you can buy on a site like Chewy. I looked it up myself because I was curious. Ready-made ones that you can just buy. So just having all of that stuff assembled and ready so that in the event of a quick evacuation, you're ready to go.
I know for my dog Buddy, because he's a rescue, he is microchipped, and so that's always reassuring that if that's an option for people, then when we hear these stories, Jackie, where sometimes a long-lost pet is found thousands of miles away, and thanks to the microchip, sometimes they can reunite the pet with the family. I remember, I think it's great that you talk about this as far as a backup plan. My friend Colleen, during one of the last hurricanes that struck Florida, and her mother-in-law had traveled, has 3 cats. So they were risking life and limb to get back to the mother-in-law's home because she had left the 3 cats and somebody was in and out house sitting. And so they were all panicked, risking their safety to go make sure that the kitty cats were okay, which they were. But to your point, it's important to have those plans in place, because what if you're not home, you've had a dog sitter, a cat sitter, that sort of thing. If they're not spending the night, then you do have to have that backup plan. What if some kind of a disaster strikes? Who's going to go check on your pet? And it's important. A lot of people don't think about it.
Right, and it can happen quickly. I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize. Like, you can be at work and all of a sudden something happens that you didn't account for. So, yeah, I think I always, suggest people have a plan with a neighbor or a friend, family member, somebody close by that has access to your home. They should know where your pet emergency kit is. They should know where your pets are in the home, just somebody that can help you get there, get them out safely, and then also have a plan for how to get them to you after the fact. So that's really important too.
You know, when you founded this 501c3, this nonprofit, the Human Animal Alliance, bringing people and animals together, and you're an equestrian, and you have gold medals, right? You competed, and you're a gold medalist as far as an equestrian.
Correct.
So take me through that, because I had actually done a story, I don't know, within the last year at parks where they have race horses, and they actually they have to vet families, but they will place retired race horses within a family. Let's say somebody especially who has an autistic child. Maybe they have a lot of land where they would not pay for the horse. They would adopt the horse, care for the horse, and continue to, but there's a therapy aspect to it. Are you involved with that sort of thing, or is it more pets like dogs and cats?
Oh, no. I mean, many of the grants that we've done to date have involved equine therapy. I think there's something so special about horses. I mean, all animals, of course, but there's something very intuitive about horses. Like, they just can provide therapy in a way that I believe is on a whole different level. So, for example, we just did a grant, actually 2 grants in Texas, animal therapy programs that use horses for victims of human trafficking. And this one was big for us because this issue of human trafficking is just so prevalent right now. And actually, another thing people don't know is that half of the victims are males. So one of the grants that we did was for male victims to get them amazing access to equine therapy free to them so they can heal and take advantage of what the horses can do for them.
Well, that aspect is amazing. I have a nephew, Jamie, here in this area, turning 18 in September, who was born at maybe 2 pounds premature, and he's that miracle March of Dimes baby who's now a teenager. And I believe part of Jamie's advancement is through, like you're saying, the equine therapy. Just there's something about a horse or a dog, but especially horseback riding, that there's this connection that they make. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, there's science behind it too, and it's something I don't know very much about, but plan to research in the future. Just really understanding, like, physiologically, why is that? But the energy field of a horse is so enormous and so amazing, and I think that's part of the reason why they affect us, the way that they do. So they're amazing.
Oh, it's beautiful. Now, take me through it as far as making that human alliance, either keeping people together or connecting them. What's your role with your nonprofit in doing that?
So fundraising, we raise money essentially to grant it to charity partners who are helping us with these initiatives. So we're constantly watching the news cycle. We're advocating for the human-animal bond, right? But it's like, where is that needed the most at any given time, given world events? So that's why we've zeroed in on these natural disasters, the human trafficking, things like that, because it's very relevant in the world right now. And so we have some amazing donors. We're a South Florida-based organization. I live in Wellington, which is a big equestrian community, and people here have been wonderful supporting. And so, yeah, we're raising funds to put these grants out. And we vet our charity partners extensively. For every grant that goes out, we probably interview about 100 charities.
And so, would you recommend, as you are an expert in this, do you recommend for people, even with the mental health crisis going on, I would imagine that's one more layer, one more reason that with parents with kids who are suffering with that post-pandemic, or adults, to think about adopting a pet?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a big proponent of rescue and, having pets and all that, but I would also say people need to really think through, can they take on that responsibility? I think a lot of times they don't realize how much really goes into it, not just time-wise, but financially. So I would say be prepared and really make sure that you're committed, because we don't want to perpetuate a cycle, right, where animals are adopted and then they're winding back in the shelter again. So, thinking that through is important.
I should point out, Jackie, that this is not your full-time job. You actually this is what you do in your free time, which I can't imagine. You're very busy, but you have Ducci and Associates, right? And you have this huge. Can you tell us about what you're doing when you're not saving animals and uniting animals and people?
Well, actually, so it is my full-time job now.
Okay.
Yeah, I had the recruiting firm up until recently, and then I just decided it wasn't fulfilling to me on the level that this work is. So yeah, I'm full-time now, helping people and animals, and thrilled to be doing it.
Oh,
so.
That's amazing. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
That is amazing. What do you say to people who are, as I know some people are like, I don't want to get a dog, I don't want to get a cat, and then what if I go on vacation? What would you say to that person who didn't grow up with animals like we did? And I'm like you. I grew up around horses, and my joke about my dad is that we had to rescue everything. We actually had to rescue llama. We had we had this rescue goat that they were going to put down because the goat had these little horns. And so my dad figured out, he took a green garden hose and snipped and custom fit the little garden hose pieces over the little goat's little horns because it would butt people. And so we named him Gumby, and then he found a home for Gumby. So this is my dad. This is how I was raised.
I love that.
But for people who aren't raised with animals, some people are afraid of a dog, and yet, for example, here in Philadelphia, and many places, crime on the rise, loneliness on the rise for so many reasons, there are so many benefits to having a dog or a cat. What do you say to somebody who is thinking about, adopting a pet?
That's a great question, because I do think there are probably some people that shouldn't have animals, but I think it's a very small percentage. And I think most that aren't drawn to it probably, like you said, have just never had that opportunity to know what it really is and how special it is. So I would say maybe for someone like that, finding ways to spend time with animals before actually committing, like maybe it's volunteering at a shelter, maybe it's spending time with a family member's animal, anything, just to kind of get in their presence and see if it speaks to them. I feel sorry for people that aren't really pulled, because I think a lot of times they haven't had the exposure and they're missing out. I
love it. Well, I hope you come back. Jackie Ducci, thank you so much for being here. And I certainly think we're kindred spirits in our love of animals and dogs and cats and horses. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Jackie Ducci.